Well, hello, the Vlad here. Welcome to my studio. Today we're checking out the NUX Mighty Bass 50BT. This little beast comes with a 6.5-inch speaker, which is rated at 60 watts, and it's basically an FRFR loudspeaker. And because it's an FRFR design, this means that you can actually change impulse responses in this amplifier, and that can drastically change the sounds you're getting from this amp. The frequency response range goes from 40 Hz up to 16 kHz. The amp weighs 7.2 kilos and it comes with an external power supply rated at 28 volts DC. The amp also ships with an external foot switch that you can use to control the loop. And there's even a kickstand that you can use to angle the amp more towards your ears. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use this amplifier, share my experiences using this playing with a band, and I also talk about what it's like to use this amplifier as a recording tool as well. I should also mention that I'm bringing this video to you in collaboration with NUX, and I get to keep the amplifier as compensation for my work. However, the company has no say in the things I mention here in this video. Alright, we're plugged in. I'm playing my Sterling Stingray bass, and we're going straight from the bass into the amplifier input over here, and we're hearing the amplifier through the XLR out over here. And basically how this amplifier works is that you can have 3 different channels or presets, however you want to think of them, and you can cycle between those using this button over here. And right away, some of you might ask, can't you use this foot switch to switch the channels? And the answer is unfortunately no. This is more like a light gigging amplifier. So you basically have like 1 or 2 different sounds that you play through the whole set, trigger between 3 of those here. And you can actually see what happens when I click this button. We are cycling through 3 different channels. So basically you can create 3 different tones and cycle between them using this button over here. And let's start with the channel number 1, and here's how that sounds. Yeah, nice basic sound. Looks like we have some AGL 8x10 cabinet. We can swap those if we want to. Let's go to channel number 2. And then channel number 3. So that's how all of the 3 channels sound by default, but obviously you can tweak this as on many other amplifier models as well. You can enable modulation, for example, to actually go to 2nd channel, for example. And then we're going to swap IRs over here. Let's go with bass guy. Something that you don't really hear because we're using the XLR out. The amp sounds really different depending on which IR you are using, and that's really cool. And as you can tell, there's a few different effects you can have. There's the effects block where there's K compressor, rose comp, touch wire, univibe, phase, boost, tube screamer, and a muff as well. And there's 3 different amplifiers to choose from. IR section, you can basically use the ones that this amp comes with, or you can upload your own as well. Modulation section has chorus, flanger, and phaser. Let's check out the flanger, for example. Now, strangely enough, there's also a reverb, and I personally have never used reverb on bass, but let's give it a try. Maximum level! it's a reverb. And then channel number 3. And if we take a look at the desktop software while we're tweaking here, you can actually see that we can tweak a lot of stuff right from here. And we can actually select different things we want to tweak here as well, which is really nice. So the frequencies, then we can actually adjust a couple of parameters per pedal. For example, if we open up the K-comp and use the 2 parameter controls over here, we can actually tweak like the level of the compressor and sustain without any kind of need to use the desktop editor or the phone editor as well. And so far, I think this is a killer practice tool, and you don't necessarily need to whip out a phone or desktop editor. You can just play and tweak everything from here. And I want to quickly go back to the impulse response thing again, because it makes a massive difference to the sound of the amplifier, both when recorded, but also just listening through this little box over here. And here's one of the impulse responses this amp comes with. And here's something that I uploaded. Alright, even though this amplifier is easily labeled as a practice amplifier, I actually decided to take this with me to a band rehearsal where I would be playing acoustic guitar and I would actually play through one of the NUX's acoustic amplifiers. And my buddy Marco decided to take up on a challenge of using this amplifier in a band rehearsal, and here's a short clip of that.
Did you know that your baby boy will hold the soul with his hand? Did you know that your baby boy has walked the ranger's round? And you kissed your little baby, you kissed the face of God. Did you know?
And what we learned during this rehearsal was that this amplifier gets loud, like really, really loud. And at no point we actually felt that we need to plug this amplifier into the 4x10 setup that is at the rehearsal space. This thing gets really, really loud, way beyond like your traditional practice amplifier. And we had no trouble hearing the bass during the band rehearsal, even though there's 2 different keyboards, an acoustic guitar, several singers, stuff like that. This thing packs a punch, and you can actually use it with the band as well. And as the last thing, I wanted to try this amplifier as a studio tool, and what I ended up doing is using the Logic's stem splitter and take out the bass from some of my favorite tracks ever and play bass on those tracks instead, using the NUX amplifier over here. And also try to do as little post-processing as possible, and here's the results. Alright, so is this amplifier good and worth your money? And I'm gonna say it depends. If you want to have something that's pretty small, not that light, but pretty small, sounds huge, and You can use it both practicing at home and in a live situation as well. This thing is killer. It sounds way bigger than the box itself is. And again, we couldn't believe how loud this thing got and how well it handled itself in a band situation. So you can both practice with this, but you can also use this for live as well. And I was really impressed by that. I also love the fact that you can drastically change the tone of your amplifier by swapping different impulse responses into this. And that was really cool. It works really well, and the amplifiers actually sounds completely different depending on which IR you are using. So that was really impressive. There's even this nice little kickstand over here that you can have just to angle it more towards your ears. So it is designed for small gigs and rehearsals as well. As you might have noticed, I didn't really use the looper or the drum machine just because I don't really do either of those things. I many times think I'm getting into looping, but in reality I just don't. It's not my thing, but it's cool to have this foot switch that you can operate. Like, it again adds value to the overall product. Some will use it, some won't, but it kind of doesn't cost you extra, so that's really cool. If I'm totally honest, I'm not a huge fan of the high gain bass tones I get with this amplifier. They're fun, and with a bit of EQ I could probably get them to where I like them, but I don't really record metal bass tones anyway, so that's not really an issue for me. And I also understand if somebody finds this amp a little bit limiting because you cannot switch the channels using a foot switch. But personally, that's not really an issue to me because I don't change my bass tones that much when playing live. If you're playing this amp with your band and even live, the external power supply is both good and a bad thing as well. I'd be a little bit worried because of its design and possible breakage, but then on the other hand, because the power supply is external, you can probably get a replacement power supply somewhere as well. So it's something I feel you should be aware of, but I don't see it as a big issue as well. And if you want to get your NUX Mighty Bass 50BT, the affiliate links in the description. Using those won't cost you anything extra, but I earn a small commission from every purchase, which helps me to put food on my family's table. Thanks. If you got any questions, be sure to ask those down below. And thanks for watching. I shall see you next time.